Good morning here from the DML estate. I'm here, Harlan Hill, for those of you that are just joining us for the first time. And this is what we call a walk and talk. It started out with Dennis literally walking the neighborhoods of his Long Island neighborhood, walking the streets of his Long Island neighborhood, and just talking to you guys, being really authentic about his take on politics, totally unfiltered analysis of the news. And we've taken that model and we've applied it to this studio. And over time, I think we've gotten progressively, more organized, and this has become more and more of a real professional operation. But we've never really lost sight of what it was that the DML was starting out with, which was just giving you his honest take on the news. And so that's what I'm going to do today. I wanted to, we had a lot of news last week with the healthcare debate, and with the coming up short with that healthcare bill. And I say coming up short and for a couple different reasons. One is we can all agree that the bill, even Donald Trump acknowledged that the bill is not the one that he wanted. And we came up short both in terms of the context of how the bill was written, but also because we weren't able to pass a bill at all. I was on the air yesterday and I was saying that in many ways I feel like this is the best possible thing that could have happened, because it's making us go back to the drawing board where, the political will on the Democratic side of the aisle, as well as certainly the Republican side of the aisle, is not there to pass real comprehensive health care reform. So I'm not for doing anything half-baked. If we're going to do health care reform, let's do it right. So if that means we have to put it on the back burner for a few months, for a year, that's what it's going to be. And I'd rather do that than double down on the failure of Obamacare. So in many ways, this really is the best thing that could have happened. And I sincerely hope we move on to something like tax reform. And if you look at how Wall Street has responded today to the coming up short, the healthcare bill, which we'll talk about in a minute, there are real repercussions. Wall Street and Main Street and you guys at home want to see some action out of Washington. And as I said on Saturday's Walk and Talk, Trump can't do it on his own. The president of the United States is not a dictator. He depends on legislation coming from both Democrats and Republicans alike on the Hill. And that's why I said, I went on CNN yesterday and I said, if Paul Ryan can't do this, if he couldn't come up with a reasonable bill to repeal and replace Obamacare, the guy's either incompetent or he's a snake. And in many ways, I think my vote is on both. And Dennis may not agree with that. And we've debated back and forth, which is one of my favorite things about what we're doing, is that we agree on the base. We agree on the problems that we've identified that exist in the United States as a product of the previous administration. We agree on that. What we don't always agree on is how we fix these problems. And I feel like I learned a lot from Dennis, and I hope he learns a lot from my perspective. And in the middle, this is how the sausage is made, because we come together and we talk, right? And we debate these ideas. And we're not afraid. We're not afraid to do it. We're not afraid to, get our hands dirty. And while I want to talk about healthcare, and I want to talk about the economy, and I want to talk about what Trump's doing next, I want to talk about another network where this isn't the case. And of course, I'm talking about the Blaze. I'm talking about Tomi Lahren. I'm talking about Glenn Beck. Let's put aside what Tomi said about abortion. I don't care if you're pro-life or pro-choice or whatever. What really concerned me about how Glenn handled that was that instead of walking down the hall to her studio and saying, hey, Tomi, let's debate this out. I disagree with you, and here's why. He suspended her. And yesterday, we heard that he's permanently banned her from the Blaze. Now let's put aside another thing, not just the meat of this issue. Let's put aside the fact that Glenn is her employer, and she has shown no disrespect to him, at least publicly. Let's talk about this as a course of action in a democracy and in a media company where I believe free thought and debate and disagreement are really productive things. Glenn could have used this as an opportunity to educate his viewers, to educate Tommy. Tommy could use this as an opportunity to try to persuade Glenn. But Glenn didn't want that. He wanted to stifle debate and disagreement within his own media organization. And he's been totally disingenuous in the process. You have to remember, Glenn is someone who elected not to support Donald Trump after the Republican primary, after it was clear that it was a binary choice. You had two options in the last election. You had a warmonger who was under federal investigation for corruption and for lying about her use of a private email server and putting her own political expedience ahead of national security. Someone that has supported partial birth abortion. If you're pro-life, that should really concern you. As opposed to supporting somebody like Donald Trump, who has said that he was pro-life, someone that has said that he would defund Planned Parenthood, and if that's something you care about, then it would make sense to support Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton. But Glenn didn't do that. Glenn didn't do that. In fact, there was political retribution for anyone that Glenn encountered who said that they supported Donald Trump. So Glenn is full of it. And he's a coward because he has made himself unavailable to debate. So this isn't about the meat of the issue. This is about him as a person. Glenn is gone off the reservation. And, and anybody that was watching him over the last election saw that. And anybody that's actually pro-life, I'm not weighing in on this issue at all. Anyone that's actually pro-life should look at somebody like Glenn Beck and say, you're a liar and a coward. Because you say that this is the most important issue to you, yet when it came time to actually cast a vote in the election between two candidates that were offering very different views on this issue, you sided with the one that was a much more radically pro-choice. So, and certainly much more radically pro-choice than Tommy was in that interview on The View. I have the quote. I have the quote here. So she was on ABC's The View, and she said, "You know what? I'm for limited government, so stay out of my guns, and you can stay out of my body as well." That's what she said. That's what she said. Debate that. Argue that with her. You know. Anyway, enough with Glenn Beck. Let's get on to the substance at hand. I just wanted to share that with you guys because it's such a stark contrast to other organizations where disagreement is actually a great opportunity. I feel like you guys learn the most about what I'm thinking or what Dennis is thinking when we're talking these issues out, when we're disagreeing. If everybody on a network is just agreeing with each other, you're not going to hear anything now. I'm not going to be pushed further to better understand what I think, what I feel. Same for you. Our responsibility to each other is to challenge one another. That's actually often why when Dennis and I are practicing, sometimes it's hard, but when Dennis and I are practicing, we're doing rehearsals in here, I'll say outrageous things. I'll argue it from the far left extreme. You know, it's like a communist or something. Because I try to understand what the other side is thinking. And arguing on these extremes help us better understand that. And there's not much difference between somebody like Glenn and Tommy. It really isn't. So it tells you a lot about Glenn and how uncomfortable he is with the demise of his own star. And as he started to fade, you know, this is somebody that was, you know, a top-rated news host on Fox, and now he's been taken down a notch. The blaze isn't what it used to be. His star is not on the rise. He's fading. So let's get back to the healthcare debate. Chuck Schumer was on ABC's This Week, and the Senate Minority Leader from New York told host George Stephanopoulos that the Democratic Party is, quote, willing to work with President Donald Trump on the issue of healthcare. He claims that Trump never approached Democrats in an effort to find common ground on reforming the Affordable Care Act. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just reporting this so you guys hear where Chuck's coming from. He said, quote, Democrats have provided our Republican colleagues drop, replace, and stop undermine the ACA, and we will work with our Republicans friends as long as they say no more repeal. We have ideas. They have ideas to try to improve Obamacare. We never said it was perfect. It certainly isn't. We always said we'd work with them to improve it. We just said repeal was off the table. For the president to say that he'll destroy it or undermine it, that's not presidential, blah, blah, blah. That's petulance, and it's not going to work. So what's interesting about that quote is that, Chuck couldn't take the high road there. He had to get down into the mud and basically accuse the president of being a petulant child, which is remarkably disrespectful, but okay. But Chuck's saying that, clearly Obamacare is failing. Clearly. They know it. And because the bill failed on Friday, it means that Trump's not going to own that failure. If they had passed that bill, and Trump had scored that short-term win, in the long term, this could have really, really hurt him. It could have really, really hurt those that voted for it. If you're going to properly repeal this, if you're going to properly redo it, Actually repeal it. Don't try to get this thing done through reconciliation. Come up with another bill. And Chuck Schumer, this is what kills me. Chuck Schumer is saying that he would like to work with Donald Trump. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he really does want to work with Donald Trump on coming up with health care reform. Well, where's Chuck's bill? Where's the Democratic proposal on repealing or not necessarily repealing, but replacing, let's take repeal out because they find that word offensive, redoing, repairing, reconstituting Obamacare. Because they know that they're going to own this failure if it's allowed to metastasize. So Chuck, enough with the talk. You can do the Sunday show circuit all you want. You can do those junkets all you want. But, you have the power to write legislation along with your friends in the House. Propose some legislation. Maybe we'll find some common ground. The White House Chief of Staff, Reince Priebus, was on Fox News Sunday, and he acknowledged that President Donald Trump felt disappointed with a number of people that he thought were loyal to him and were not, but that they think that it's time for the Republican Party to start governing, and I think it's time for our folks to come together, and I think it's time to potentially get a few moderate Democrats on board as well. So these are good positive signs from the Trump team. I think that they know now that all Republicans are not going to move in lockstep with them for good and bad reasons. In the case of somebody like Paul Ryan, he's a saboteur. In the case of many of the people in the Freedom Caucus, they're just doing what they think is right for the United States. We can disagree or agree with them. But I believe that there's very different strategy and motivation at the root of both of those. I do want to talk about one thing, though, as it relates to healthcare, and I'm going to pull my IFB out here. I want to walk to the board, and I want to show you guys something. Can you guys still hear me? Still good? So I want to show you guys what Wall Street's take on this is. So we're going to go full screen here. And let's see here. Let me show you. This is around the time President Donald Trump was elected President of the United States. And you can see that there was a lot of instability in the markets as we led up to the election. And around the time of this line here is when the president was elected. And almost immediately you saw a very strong response to the election of President Donald Trump. Wall Street expected tax reform. Wall Street expected enormous movement on healthcare reform. They expected us to pull out of TPP and some of these other trade deals that were gutting the American middle class so that we would have good consumers to start buying products that the American big Fortune 500 companies want and need. So they thought that we were going to head for this new era of prosperity. And I still think that many of them do. And so that's why we went from, what was it? It was Dow. We were at Dow about 17,000. That's where we were, more or less, about 17.9. And, and we went up to Dow 21,000. This is the average of the Dow Industrial Average. And so we saw this probably one of the greatest periods of expansion in such a short period of time. Last week was a totally different story. And it's a warning sign to Trump. And I think that he's going to pay attention to this. He cares about indicators like the market. He cares about indicators like job performance. He does care about the polls. And what we've seen is that today, the Dow, or in the last 2 weeks, the Dow has fallen from about 21,000 to just over 2,500. So it's a pretty big decline. It is concerning, but I wouldn't look too much into this. I wouldn't read too much into this. I wanted to share it with you guys because I believe that it's Wall Street's way of warning the president that we are on the wrong course. That this isn't the ruthless efficiency that they thought they were going to get out of this president, and that if we're going to be headed towards 4 more years of stalemate, as we've seen as we saw with President Obama, and his inability to get any legislation passed, whether it's infrastructure spending or it's tax reform or healthcare reform, if we're not going to get any of that out of President Donald Trump, then they're not as bullish on the American economy as they were just 2 weeks ago. And so I want to share that with you guys because it is something that's a little bit concerning, and I bet Donald Trump's talking about it too. You know, he tweeted a lot about the Trump rally, right? He was pretty excited by that, right? I mean, it was a massive vote of confidence from Wall Street, and he didn't have very many friends on Wall Street during the election. Many of them supported Hillary Clinton, and I'll never understand why. Why they would want to double down on the failed policies of the last administration blows my mind. Why they wouldn't want to, actually I do know why, but I'll save that for another time. But, you know, so I do know he pays attention to this. He's tweeted so. He said so in interviews. You know, when he had meetings with leaders in the Fortune 500 companies at the White House, when he had his business council meeting, he said, you know, you guys should love me. You know, I mean, everybody in the room had made a lot of money because of the Trump rally. So this is something he cares about. It's not just, you know, some ephemeral numbers out there. And you know, they often say that Wall Street, you know, and money or even betting markets are some of the best predictors of outcomes. And you know, we haven't seen an all-out collapse. You know, we've seen it pull back like by 500 or 600 points, right? But it's the alarm bell ringing. And I don't necessarily think that it's all directed at President Donald Trump. I think it's directed at Congress too. So you guys need to wake up. And this isn't about one political party or another. This isn't about Democrat versus Republican. It's about let's get some work done here. Let's get to work, guys. So anyway, and speaking about getting government back to work, Trump's often really frustrated by this notion. The government doesn't work like business, where it's not instantly responsive. You know, the big business, even the biggest corporation, or let's get a startup, for instance, or something like Facebook, they're much more nimble than the United States government. You know, they're like a little, rowboat compared to a giant shipping vessel that is the United States government. Whereas if you want to turn around a giant shipping vessel, right, you know, it takes time, you know. A little rowboat, you just turn it around. Wall Street's able to send warning signs immediately. The United States government's not able to respond as quickly. And so what President Donald Trump wants to do is he's starting this initiative to fight government stagnation. There's a great piece on this on DennisMichaelLunch.com. And he's pegged Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, to run it. It's called the White House Office of American Innovation. And it will be filled by former business executives who seek to bring in new thinking to Washington. Kushner said that the government should be run like a company. We should have excellence in government. He said our hope is that we can achieve successes and efficiencies in our customers, for our customers who are the American citizens. What a great way to start looking at this. You know, stop thinking about the American people as just citizens. Start thinking about them as customers. When you go to the DMV, you should be treated like a customer, where they have to fulfill your requirements or their consequences. You know, it's breaking down this old mentality of the big American bureaucracy is part of what Donald Trump ran on. Trump told reporters that the office was focusing on fixing government stagnation and that it would have the authority to overhaul federal bureaucracy and fulfill many of the campaign promises, such as reforming health care for veterans and fighting opioid addiction. Hoping to introduce aggressive, non-ideological views, and they've gotten the sign-on from Apple CEO Tim Cook, Microsoft founder Bill Gates, Salesforce chief executive Mark Benioff, and Tesla chief executive Elon Musk. The CEO of Salesforce told reporters that he was looking forward to collaborating with Kushner. He said, when I talk to Jared, he does remind me a lot of the young, scrappy, 30-something-year-old entrepreneurs that I so often invest in. And so if this works, and this is going to be a really hard thing to do, you have to remember that the American bureaucracy, you know, is 200 years in the making, right? I mean, it took a long time to build this thing. You know, literally millions of people are part of our federal workers. Literally millions, include contractors and all that. It is a massive apparatus. It is a massive bureaucracy. Changing this, it will take a long time. And that's part of the reason that as soon as Trump came in office, he signed the executive order to set limits on new hiring, to try to reduce costs. Just on day one, didn't need any legislation to do it. You know, but part of it is making government do more with less. Because, you know, in any organization, when you have unlimited resources, you spend what you have. And if you have unlimited resources, you spend unlimited. So, you know, so they're taking a different tack on it, trying to turn or treat the United States government like a startup, and start treating you not as an annoyance when you need something from the government, when you need some sort of service from the government. If you're a veteran, for instance, you're not a burden. Start treating you as a customer like you would in a private institution. And so, you know, in some ways, maybe this means that some services need to be privatized. Maybe some don't. But this new office that'll be run by Jared Kushner will be taking that on. And this is, you know, another campaign promise that Trump ran on, and we'll start seeing the results really soon. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was a fun, walk and talk. We were trying some new things. I don't know if you can look at the eye in the sky. Pull out a little bit. I want to show you guys something. One is, pull out all the way. I want to show you guys something. So this couch that I'm sitting on right now is going to be replaced. Dennis broke down, and he finally decided, I think you guys saw on the walk and talk, on the second walk and talk, or the second broadcast we did on Friday after Trump spoke, that Dennis decided that he's going to replace this couch. Also, you might have noticed that we have a new chair here. I don't know if there's a way to get that in here, but it's a gorgeous new chair. And so there you go. And so when Dennis and I are sitting here and we're going through the mail in our actual show, he'll be sitting there in the big chair, and we can answer some of the mail that'll be there in the bird. I actually don't know if we have. Did we ever settle on a name, Tim? Some people did. So we're trying to get some more ideas for this name. I've heard Pepe, all kinds of stuff. Pete's good. Yeah, Pete's a cool name. I like that alliteration. It's a pelican, so Pete the Pelican or something like that. I don't know. We'll come up with it. But if you guys have any ideas, send it to us. Put it in the chat, because we read every single chat message right here. So leave us a message, and and we'll put it. Maybe we'll run a poll on the website. I don't know. I got to talk to Dennis about that. But we got to get a cute name for him. But the idea is that at the end of our show every night, you guys are going to be sending us mail. We'll print it out like with questions or whatever, a commentary. Like you're like, oh, hey, Harlan, you got to get a haircut or something. I don't know. And Dennis will pull it out of there. I'll pull one out of there, and we'll read them. So like I said, this place is a work in progress. But our goal is to launch next week. We're going to launch with a new show, and this place is Dennis is actually heading over here now, I think, with some more of the furniture. And maybe we can do another broadcast later today so you guys can see it. But you guys have been so much of a part of it. I know you guys don't like the wall color. I know. We don't own this place, right? We don't own this place, so we can't change the wall color in here. Trust me, we would not have picked. What is this, Tim? Is this like pink or something? Coral. Like coral. Yeah, it's like a coral. We would not have done this. This is not DML style. Pink or coral or salmon, whatever this is. Certainly not my style either. But this is where we are for now, and it's great because we are afforded so much space here. We had looked in the city at all these different studio spaces, all these different office spaces that we could have we could have located in, and they were a fraction the size of this. And we, literally, we could produce a movie here. Like honestly, not just documentary. Like we could, we sit on many acres. It's a big place, lots of room to grow. But we'll be here for the time being, and it's a really good place for us to start growing. But we have to put up with little quirks like the bad couch, but we're getting rid of that, and then the weird walls. But I think what's most important is I hope you guys like the content. We're getting more and more polished over time, and not over time really. We've been producing or been working on what the actual show is going to be looking like for well over a month now, and that will be TV quality. But we hope that it is different. Our goal isn't to just be like talking heads staring into the camera, talking to you guys. As you guys have seen, like with this, and I read every comment that comes in here. We want to be interactive. We want to work in, a very, very different vibe than you would expect on, something like Fox or CNN or MSNBC. We're not that on the internet. We're different, and that's our goal. So. Anyway, great being with you guys. It's fun as always. And if you love what we're doing, download the app. Dennis Michael Lynch, or just search for Dennis Michael Lynch in the iOS App Store and in the Google Play Store. And please donate. We're almost there. We had to buy one more camera for this studio so that since we're a small team, we can't be moving cameras around during the show. And so we bought another one of these robot cameras so that Tim can control it from a control board in the control room. And when we have a producer joining us for the actual show, they'll sit in there with him too, and they can kind of help him man the control room, because it's a lot. He's managing sound and graphics, and which you guys don't see yet, but you'll see for the actual show. Camera input. He can modify. He literally has a joystick in there where he can control these cameras and where they move and zoom, and so they're pretty cool. But when we have a producer in there for the actual show, they'll be able to help him out with some of that stuff. And so anyway, if you love what we're doing, please donate as well. We had to get that other camera and do a couple other things, but I believe Monday, I'll have to confirm with Dennis, but I believe this coming Monday, not a week from today, we're going to put out our first evening show. And so I can't wait to share that with you guys. So yeah, and great. They're saying great job, Tim. Yeah, he does a great job. Yeah, we'll have to get a mic on him at some point too. But anyway, thank you guys so much. Like I said, if you can, please contribute. It's DennisMichaelLynch.com/donate. Pinch every penny, and we're almost there. And this studio will be 100% ready to go. So thank you guys so much, and I'll see you later.